Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you guys are new around here, my name is Becca. I am a registered dietitian and I make lots of videos here on my channel about nutrition, health, wellness, intuitive eating, and lifestyle. And in today's video, we are going to be talking all about nutrition during pregnancy. So I've been meaning to make this video for a while. If you guys are totally new around here, I am currently pregnant. I am just about 32 weeks pregnant, so I'm in my third trimester, and I wanted to make a video specifically all about nutrition in pregnancy because there are definitely some things that I think are important to know just in general, but then also there are some very specific things I'm going to touch on as well. So my goal for this video is to touch on just kind of healthy eating in general in pregnancy. We're going to touch a little bit on weight gain, but then I really want to specifically focus on some of the most important and critical nutrients during pregnancy. We're going to talk about why you need them, why it's important for you and baby, and then also some food sources where you can find those important nutrients. Okay, so first things first, the most important thing when it comes to nutrition during pregnancy, in my opinion, is eating as best you can just a whole real food diet. Eating real food, not junk, is the best thing that you can do for not only your body, to nourish your own body, but to nourish that tiny little baby that is growing in your body. Whole real foods are going to provide so many nutrients to you and your baby versus you're not going to get nearly as many nutrients if you are typically eating food that is processed or just food in general that comes like out of a package or a box or anything like that. So for example, I'm talking fruits, vegetables, grains, you know, if you consume dairy, whole grass-fed dairy, also meat if you consume meat, beans. So basically just anything that is a real food, you know, have at it during pregnancy. Of course, there are some things that we're recommended not to eat for food safety reasons, so obviously you want to avoid those, but anything that is real, and guess what? Pickles are real food, so have at it. Okay, another thing I think is important to focus on during pregnancy is just eating a balanced diet in general. So if you are eating a typical or a mainly whole food diet, this is kind of going to, it's basically going to balance itself out for the most part. But when I say balanced diet and balanced meals and snacks, I'm typically talking about blood sugar control. I have talked about blood sugar endlessly here on my channel because I think it is so important just for the everyday person, not even someone who has diabetes or anything like that, but during pregnancy, we can develop what's called gestational diabetes, and it's just not something you want to deal with. It's not fun. So making sure that you're always consuming balanced meals and snacks is really important. I'm not going to go in depth on that in this video. I've got a whole video on blood sugar, also my macronutrients video. You will find that helpful too. But just understanding how to pair certain foods together to make them the most favorable to our blood sugar. And of course, our diets aren't going to be perfect. Sometimes you're going to have sweets, or sometimes you're going to have things that maybe are very carb rich and not the best for blood sugar. But if we are conscious of it most of the time and eating balanced meals and snacks most of the time, in my book, that is totally fine. Also, another thing that is important to be conscious of during pregnancy is weight gain. So when we are pregnant, we have got to gain weight. It is important. It just comes with the territory. We've got to gain weight because not only are we like physically growing a human and growing a placenta and our blood volume is doubling, all of these things are happening that make up for you know, increase in weight, but also we are storing fat as well. So we are storing fat in our boobs, we're storing fat all over our body, and this is important because it's going to set us up for, you know, being able to have a milk supply when baby is born. So there's a lot of things that go into supporting a good milk supply, but gaining you know, appropriate weight is one of them. So it is important to gain weight, and it's not a bad thing. Most of the weight you gain isn't even fat. It really truly is blood volume increasing, placenta, baby growing, all of those things. And if you are pregnant, then you already know that the guideline for weight gain during pregnancy is anywhere from 25 to 35 pounds. Now this is a good, again, guideline. I think this is, we need to have something to go off of, but you know, it really depends person to person. It depends, you know, on your body type before you are pregnant, you know, how much you weigh before you're pregnant. There are a lot of factors that go into it, so I wouldn't, in my opinion, live and die by those numbers, but they are a good thing to keep in mind just to help us stay conscious. And I think it's really popular during pregnancy just to kind of throw you know, everything out the window and indulge in every last craving and overeat constantly because we can. This is our only time to do it. And, you know, I really do not subscribe to that. If that is something that you are doing during your pregnancy or have done during a past pregnancy, I am not judging you by any means, but it certainly is not the most healthy practice. And it's just gonna, after pregnancy, you're gonna have, you know, way more excess weight outside of just the fat that you need to put on during pregnancy, plus blood volume, baby growing, placenta, all of that. It just doesn't put you in the best situation. And I think I've talked to a lot of moms who have done that during their first pregnancies and then did not repeat that in later pregnancies. And they, you know, they kind of regretted going full balls to the wall when they were in their first pregnancy. And again, I'm not judging you if that is you, but I do think it's important to be conscious of your weight gain because it can bring on other complications if you do gain excess amount of weight for your body. Now, again, that doesn't mean you gain like 36 pounds and it's excess weight. No, I think every body is so different and we should just use that as a guideline. And I am a true believer that if you know, are capable of listening to your body and you are an intuitive eater like myself, your body will gain the weight that it needs to gain. There are some days where I eat a ton. There are other days where I really don't eat much. My appetite is super low and it's evening out and I'm consistently gaining weight. I feel like my body is just kind of doing what it needs to do. It is in the driver's seat and I am just trying to eat to fullness, pay attention to satiety and hunger cues, also balance cravings and enjoying like food that I want. Like last night I had apple pie and vanilla ice cream and it was delicious. But then again, a lot of times I'm eating smoothies and eggs and whole foods and lots of greens and things like that as well to balance it out. And I will say, learning to eat intuitively and like not have any kind of like weird diet rules or anything, like I've had at least a few years where I've ditched that mindset completely. Not that I was like a chronic dieter before or anything like that, but I mean, I just completely eating intuitively. Learning to do that before becoming pregnant was the best gift I could have given to myself. I didn't know how handy it would be during pregnancy because I have truly been able to go through, you know, so far these just about 32 weeks really enjoying cravings that I want to have without really overeating, without overdoing it, but also eating really healthy to support this baby and this pregnancy the best way that I can. So I've just been able to kind of walk this perfect tightrope of balance and I'm not even trying. It's just really my body is kind of in the driver's seat and I am just listening to it. So I would totally encourage you, if you are, you know, maybe you're pregnant now or plan to become pregnant in the future, definitely learn how to eat intuitively. It will change your life in general, but especially when you are pregnant. And I've done tons of videos here on my channel about it. I also totally recommend the book Intuitive Eating by Evelyn Tribal and Elise Resch, one of my favorites. Okay, but that is enough about that. So now I want to dive in and talk about some specific nutrients. So there are definitely, you know, all nutrients, all vitamins and minerals are important to consume to not only support our own bodies, but to support a pregnancy and a growing baby. But there are definitely some key nutrients that are extra important during pregnancy, and I'm going to kind of rapid fire touch on those now. First things first, folate. We hear so much about folate as pregnant women because it is super important, and it is especially important early in pregnancy for spinal cord development. So this is why it is ideal to be on a prenatal supplement before you even start to conceive, so that you have plenty of folate floating around in your system to be used to fuse baby's spinal cord together. So it is super important for that. As far as food sources of real folate, you're gonna find them in green leafy vegetables. Also, legumes meaning beans, are a great source of folate, as well as citrus. I want to make a really quick point here just to touch on the importance of the active form of folate, especially when it comes to supplementation of folate. And when I'm saying the active form of folate, I am not talking about folic acid. Folic acid is the synthetic form of folate and is often what is put into prenatal supplements. This isn't something that is widely talked about. Doctors don't necessarily tell you, OBs don't necessarily tell you. Even as a dietitian, this is not something that we necessarily automatically teach, but this is something that I automatically teach because I think it is super, super important. I talked in great lengths about the importance of consuming methyl tetrahydrofolate, aka the active form of folate, versus folic acid in my prenatal supplements video, so you can go over there to check that out. There are a lot of reasons we want to be taking the real true form of folate. One reason being many women have the MTHFR gene mutation, which means that they can't really use folic acid. So I talk about that more in that video. But then also there is like some research that potentially ties folic acid to actually tongue ties and lip ties, which is super interesting, and just another thing to think about. So just wanted to mention active form of folate, methyl tetrahydrofolate, or you'll see it listed as L-methyl tetrahydrofolate. That is what you want, not folic acid. Next up is iron. Iron is so important during pregnancy, and in fact, it is also the most common vitamin deficiency during pregnancy. Iron is vital for the transportation of oxygen all around our body to all of the tissues everywhere that need it. So iron is actually found in each and every one of our red blood cells, and that is what oxygen binds to be carried through the blood around the body. Now, the thing with red blood cells is they have a very short lifespan, so we are constantly turning them over and making new ones. And in order to actually make a fully complete red blood cell, we need iron. So if we are not consuming enough iron, basically we're demanding more than we are bringing in, we're not going to be able to really create red blood cells. We're not going to have as many as we need. So it is super important that we have enough iron coming in from our diet, whether that's through food, supplementation, or both, so that we can create the amount of red blood cells we need so that we can transfer oxygen around the body. Now, when we are pregnant, you guys probably already know, our blood volume doubles in size. So we are over time cranking out red blood cells, which means our iron demand goes up even higher. And also on top of that, not just making the red blood cells and transferring oxygen all around the body, our baby requires iron as well, and also the placenta. So we have a huge demand for iron during pregnancy, which is why it is the most common deficiency. So it is important that we are getting plenty of iron. So some food sources of iron, you guys have probably already heard, red meat is a huge one, but also poultry and fish contain iron as well. And then there are also some plant sources of iron. So for example, greens, specifically spinach, beans also contain iron. Quinoa is also a good plant source of iron. Now, just to note, these are non-heme iron sources, which means they're not quite as bioavailable, so we can't absorb as much as we can from, like something like red meat. But they are still great sources of iron and also just great sources of a lot of other nutrients, so they absolutely have a place in our diet while pregnant. And also just a note, calcium inhibits the absorption of iron. So if we are consuming calcium-rich foods like a big old glass of milk with a big steak, that is not going to be the best way for our bodies to absorb the iron. Versus, you wouldn't necessarily do this, but just for examples, for the sake of an example, if you instead had a glass of orange juice, which is really rich in vitamin C, while eating that big steak, that would actually enhance the absorption of iron, because vitamin C helps with the absorption of iron. And then one final thing about iron, I know I have a lot to say, but it's an important one. If you do end up having to take a supplement, I actually found out recently that I am iron deficient in my 3rd trimester, which really, again, is kind of common. So I had to go on an iron supplement, and I always say to check out Bifra iron supplements. Of course, you want to talk to your doctor or midwife, but that is my personal favorite iron supplement to take because it is the easiest on your GI system, because iron a lot of times can cause a lot of GI distress and they're just not fun supplements to take. But Bifra iron is kind of a different story. They're slightly more expensive than just like your typical iron supplement, but I just want to throw that out there because that's my favorite and that's what I like to take. Next up is calcium. Calcium is also huge while we are pregnant. So first off, calcium is so important for baby to build their bones, their teeth, but also their nerves and muscles. And kind of the scary thing or not so fabulous thing about being pregnant. And calcium is, if our babies aren't getting enough, if we're not bringing in enough calcium from our diet or from our supplements, prenatals, whatever, whatever the baby needs and isn't already getting enough of, we're actually just going to leach that calcium from mom's bones, which is not great because bone health is important. We want to keep our bones as strong as possible for as long as possible, especially as women. So getting lots of calcium from our diet, as well as supplements, of course, is super important. So we all know that dairy is very calcium rich. I am someone who is a huge proponent of, if you can, you know, consume grass-fed sources of dairy. So I've been doing a lot of that while pregnant. Yogurt is great. Really, any kind of dairy product is going to give you lots of calcium. However, there are tons of other sources as well. For example, and this is not one unfortunately I can get on board with, but sardines are super high in calcium, basically because you're eating the bones. The bones are in there. So they are a great source of calcium. Any kind of white beans are also good sources. Kale is a good source. Almonds are a good source. And then also dried figs tend to be a pretty good source of calcium as well. So again, lots of sources. And again, if you're back to that whole food diet, if you're eating an array of whole foods, you're probably doing pretty good on your calcium consumption, but this is definitely one you want to pay attention to and look at. Next up is vitamin D. Vitamin D is crucial for so many things in the body in general, but definitely while pregnant, it's really, really important for babies' bone and teeth development. And hands down, the best way to get vitamin D is actually from the sun, from soaking up sun rays into our skin, and we can synthesize vitamin D. That is absolutely the best way to do it. A, it's pretty easy, and B, it's found that vitamin D will circulate so much longer in your bloodstream when we actually synthesize it from the sun versus, for example, like taking a vitamin D supplement. In as little as like 10 minutes a day of sun exposure. Now, this is important to note, this is without sunscreen because sunscreen blocks the rays that we need to actually synthesize the vitamin D, but 10 minutes is not too bad. You can get plenty of vitamin D, but of course there are also food sources as well. Salmon is a big one. Eggs are also a great source. Dairy products are often fortified with vitamin D, and then another great source, which is another one that I have a hard time getting on board with, is liver. Liver is actually a great source of so many vitamins and minerals because we store, as humans and animals, so many vitamins and minerals in liver. You can actually have a blood test done to see where you're at as far as your vitamin D levels. Unfortunately, so many people are deficient in vitamin D. It's very common, and it's not a good one to be deficient in because vitamin D is needed for so many processes in the body. I actually had my blood tested in the beginning of pregnancy, so I knew kind of where I was at. And if you haven't done that yet while pregnant, or if you're thinking about becoming pregnant, I would totally, highly suggest that you get your vitamin D tested. The next one is magnesium. Magnesium is not necessarily talked about a whole lot when it comes to pregnancy, but it is super important. And again, this is another one that many people tend to be actually deficient in and just don't know. So some studies have found that magnesium, or consuming adequate, proper levels of magnesium while pregnant can reduce your risk of having fetal growth restriction and also reduce your risk of preeclampsia. And lastly, can increase birth weight in babies. So those are all things we want to avoid, and something we really look for. Having proper birth weight is really, really a good thing, and that's what we want for a healthy baby. It's also important, again, for teeth and bone formation, and magnesium also plays a key role in muscle relaxation, which can be very important for mom. And what I mean by that is it's very common, a common symptom of pregnancy is leg cramps. And of course there is a lot of different things that could cause leg cramps, but having inadequate magnesium could be a reason that they are happening. So having plenty of magnesium in your, coming in from your diet or supplements or whatever can really help potentially to reduce your, leg cramps in whether severity or duration, or even just kind of get rid of them altogether. The good news is magnesium is in a lot of foods. So again, if we're eating a pretty whole food diet, you're probably getting pretty good levels of magnesium from your diet. So for example, nuts, greens, beans, potatoes, dairy, even avocados, those are all good sources of magnesium. But something else I will mention, and I talked about this a ton in my pregnancy supplements video, is a supplement called Natural Calm, which I have been taking for a majority of my pregnancy. And I mean, this is just my anecdotal experience, but I have been taking it religiously since like the start of the second trimester is when I started taking it. I take it every single night. It's a magnesium supplement that you drink, and I have yet to get a single leg cramp. champ all of pregnancy. So I don't know if it's because I'm just taking in plenty of magnesium or maybe it's for other reasons, but definitely love my Natural Calm. Next up is DHA. DHA is so important for growing babies. So DHA itself is kind of like a structural fat in that can be used in the body, and it is so important for not only brain development but for eye development, specifically the development of our retinas. So when we are building those little tiny babies in there and building those brains, building those eyes and retinas, we definitely want to make sure we're having tons of DHA. So DHA as well as EPA, great sources of that are fish. But unfortunately, while we're pregnant, a lot of fish is kind of off limits, or we're supposed to limit it. So salmon is a great source of DHA, and that is something we can absolutely consume while pregnant. Wild caught salmon is definitely your best bet and just like a healthier option over farm raised salmon. However, you can also take a supplement as well, and this is one that I have been supplementing. A lot of prenatals actually come with DHA already in the supplement. Mine does not, but I do take an extra DHA supplement as well. The next one I want to touch on briefly is protein. Protein is not a micronutrient, it is actually a macronutrient, but it is so important to get lots of protein while you are pregnant. Anywhere in the ballpark of like 70 to 100 grams of protein a day is awesome. And the reason we want to make sure we're bringing in a lot of protein is because we are like building machines, anabolic machines, when we are pregnant. So not only are we physically building a human from scratch, all of those tissues are being built, and protein is such a huge structural component in so many tissues and different things in the body. But we're also, we're creating a placenta. Our uterus is literally growing in size. Also our breasts, we're creating so much more breast tissue as our breasts prepare to breastfeed. So there is just a lot of building going on. Your body is working overtime throughout your whole pregnancy. So it is so important to be taking in lots of protein so we can support all of those processes and we have everything that we need to make sure that they go smoothly. And one huge source of protein that your body always has on hand is our muscles. And if we're not taking in, adequate protein from our diet, it is possible that our bodies would then turn to our muscles and break those, part of our muscles down in order to take the protein from there to use to build new tissues. So we really don't want to be doing that. We want to avoid that. We want to protect our muscle stores as much as possible. So eating adequate amounts of protein is super important. So those are all of the key nutrients that I wanted to go over. I know it was a lot of information, but you guys know I love to teach and I always have a lot that I want to share with you guys because it's just important stuff. But I also think it's really important to touch on calories in this video. So during pregnancy, our calorie requirements increase. During the first trimester, our calorie requirements are the same. So this is not the time to start, going crazy, overeating, eating a bunch of extra food, eating for two, which is so not true at all. No, you're eating for you and then like a tiny little human. So in the second trimester, it is an increase of about 340 calories, which is really just like a large snack or a really small meal. So again, it's not a huge change really in your diet. It's just maybe an extra hefty snack or an extra small meal or whatever, a bowl of cereal at night, something like that, to get that increase, but it really is not a huge difference. And then in the third trimester, it increases a little bit more to about 450 calories a day, which is a little more significant. That is more like a decent sized meal. So that is definitely more significant. And again, I think that these should just kind of be used as a guide. I am not someone who counts calories ever, never plan to, because I really, tune in and listen to my body, and I really do feel like your body will tell you what it needs. And there may be days where you do eat, more than 450 calories on a day in your third trimester, but then there may be a day that you maybe don't quite hit that extra 450 or so. So I wouldn't go crazy over that. Personally, I wouldn't worry about it too much and count, but just to be conscious, each trimester after the first, you should be eating a little bit more, and your appetite is going to kick up enough to make that happen. That's actually not true for me at all during this pregnancy. I feel like my appetite is so low, but there are definitely days where I eat a lot more and I feel like it kind of just evens out and makes up for it. And I've also just been gaining appropriate amount of weight throughout my pregnancy, so that's also a great sign that you are eating the appropriate amount that you should be. So in conclusion, I think one of the best things you can do while pregnant is just focus on eating whole, real food. you know, I think it's totally okay to indulge in your cravings every once in a while, whether that's, you know, you want to go to Chick-fil-A or you want to have apple pie and ice cream, or, you know, whatever, Krispy Kreme donuts, I don't know, like enjoy yourself, like enjoy your cravings, because pregnancy is kind of an interesting time and it can be fun. But at the same time, you know, it is so important to nourish your baby and your body during this time, and nutrition really is very important. I will say the first trimester, honestly, I wouldn't worry about it that much if you are feeling like crap. I felt so sick up until about week 17 of my pregnancy, and nutrition really was not something I was super focused on, to be honest. It was more so just getting calories in to sustain myself and not lose weight, because I felt god awful all the time. And I think that that is totally okay. You know, you gotta survive. If you're not sick during your first trimester, focus on nutrition, you know? But if you are feeling awful, just do what you can to get food down, whatever that is. If that's pizza, if that's mashed potatoes, if that's chicken tenders, like fries, I don't know. It may not be the healthiest choices, but whatever you can get down and, you know, you can keep down, that's what you need to do, because you just got to get through those first few weeks or few months. But after that, definitely, at least I did, shift gears and really, you know, focused heavily on nutrition and making sure I was getting in lots of whole nutrient dense foods. Also, drinking tons of water is super important. You like cannot get enough water during pregnancy. It is so important to be drinking a ton all throughout the day. And also, kind of like I said earlier in this video, just listening to your body, eating intuitively so that you can enjoy your cravings, not necessarily go overboard with them, but also kind of balance that with eating really well, not only to feel good and feel nourished and feel energetic throughout your pregnancy, but also to physically nourish your body and that little tiny baby's body that you are growing. And although, you know, maybe our moms and grandmas may have had the mentality of just like, go hog wild, this is your time, kick your feet up and just indulge, girl, because, you know, this is the only time you have to do it. I would really encourage you guys to kind of stay away from that mentality, because it's not a healthy mentality to have. It's definitely not a balanced approach. I am all for enjoying your cravings. Like, listen, I am here for it. I am pregnant right now, I get it. But also, I do think it's important to remain healthy and to, you know, make nutrition a priority, but just in a balanced way that makes it enjoyable so that you feel good, but you're also enjoying, you know, those cravings because they're fun. So that is it for this video, guys. I hope that you found it helpful. I can seriously talk about this all day. Like, I feel like I need to create like a guide in the future that goes way more in depth into this stuff, because if not, this would be like an hour-long video. I am so obsessed with pregnancy and nutrition during pregnancy and, like, you know, during breastfeeding and early childhood development. I just think it is so fascinating. It's like my absolute favorite topic, and I could literally talk about it all day, but I'm going to stop myself now before I literally talk for an hour. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope that you learned something from it. If you are pregnant currently, or if you are trying to conceive, I am sending you my love and positive vibes. I hope that you have an amazing pregnancy and you get the birth that you want. And yeah, just sending you all the love from my pregnant belly to yours. But yeah, so that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe. Follow me on Instagram so we can hang out on there. And that's it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.
Kane is in the building.